Welcome to the Love Action Art Podcast. I'm your host, Pay Carter. Today's guest is Taylor Winters, a 38-year-old trans man born in Transylvania and currently living in the UK. Taylor is here to talk about his journey transitioning, as well as how he uses social media to raise awareness about trans people and the LGBTQ community.
I was born in Transylvania, Romania in 83, so I'm nearly 38. I will be 38 soon. I started realizing from a young age that there was something going on with me, because obviously being born a female, it was not comfortable for me at all. And I started to have these feelings of, I want to be a boy and I want to be like my friends who are boys. And why am I not like that? Obviously, my young mind did not quite comprehend what was happening. I was completely dismissive of dresses and skirts, and I was really crying when my mom was dressing me up in dresses and skirts and was making a really, really big deal out of it. I never used to play with dolls. I always wanted to play with cars. And later on in my life, identified as a lesbian because I did not know the term trans back then. Obviously, it was the 90s, and you couldn't find that much information about stuff like you can now with the internet, with the help of the internet. But once the internet blossomed, I was able to do a bit of research, and I realized actually I'm trans, but I couldn't really do anything in Romania because it was quite impossible to do anything back then. Now it's a bit more open.
Was it because of resources, or were there laws in place regarding like LGBTQ people?
There was nobody really knew a lot about LGBTQIA, to be honest. Everybody was in hiding, so to speak, because nobody was talking about it. It was really, plus we had a communism era as well. Obviously I was quite little, so I think we still lived for like 10 years past that communism era. We still living in the shadow of that communism era. So people were still afraid to express like really how they were feeling or how they were. So I think that's why you didn't hear much about it anywhere, not in the news, not in media, and really limited resources when it comes to for doctors as well, and then for us as well. Because all we could read was magazines and newspapers. I remember no internet. And obviously if they weren't publishing about LGBT, because back then it was just LGBT and then it expanded, isn't it? So there was no resources, no proper resources. So that's why I identified for a long time as a lesbian, because I had no resources to actually educate myself and to find out that actually I'm trans. I always knew that it was something more than me being a lesbian, because I knew that lesbians feel like they're women, but I knew that I'm not feeling as a woman, and I'm feeling as a man.
Did you start transitioning in Transylvania?
I did left Romania in 2015. I left with my partner back then. We moved to Germany because her sister was there. We were just trying to make a better life. Romanians weren't that accepting of things that they didn't quite understand. So that kind of pushed me to agree with my partner and to say, okay, yeah, let's just leave. Romania's economy, that's no surprise to anyone that it's shit. There weren't just that many perspectives there. So yeah, we ended up moving to Germany. I was going to start my transition in Germany, as I had everything planned already and I knew what I have to do, but we ended up breaking up. So I didn't want to be there anymore. Not necessarily because of her, but I didn't really have time to make friends. And then the other big important bit was that I didn't speak the language, and I tried to learn the language, but I just couldn't. I found it too hard. I think up to when you get to a certain age, it's so hard to pick up new languages. So I decided to come to the UK. I had some friends who helped me with the move and everything. So it was quite a smooth transition, and I was actually finally in a place where I could understand what people were talking around me. And I actually moved to Northampton, a smaller city, like close to London. And then I moved to London, and I decided to start my transition. It's time. I've been waiting for too long. I started I think it's going to be 4 years soon.
Did you notice a difference between Germany and the UK?
It's a huge difference. Romania is like 50, 100 years behind Germany and UK. And It's not just because of that. I think it comes with how you're brought up as well, because if Romanians are being brought up with communist ideas compared to Germany and UK, here the parents were born here, and in Germany there's so much more resources available, they tend to raise their kids with a more understanding level than Romanians would. It's a big difference. Even Germans, they have everything set in place when it comes to healthcare. It's basically kind of like the same as here in the UK. Their healthcare is private. You do get a lot out of it. At least here in the UK, the surgeries are included. I'm not too sure about in Germany because I didn't get to that part yet.
So how was that process for you, accessing the care and actually going through the process in the medical system for transitioning?
It was quite, I would say it was smooth sailing, because it was just a matter of visiting the general practice, basically your family doctor, explain what's happening with you, explain that you want to transition. And it's just a matter of them making a referral to the gender identity clinic here in London or various others in the UK. It depends on which one's closer to you. Well, in my case, it was the one here in London. So they just made the referral. And then I got an appointment about 6 months later. Yeah, there is a bit of a waiting time because the service is accessed by a lot of trans people. So after about 6 months, I got my first appointment to do some blood tests to make sure that everything was okay with me. I've been assessed by the gender specialist. He was a really, really nice doctor who obviously knew what she was doing. That's what I like here in the UK, because when you go, you see a specific specialist, a gender specialist. So yeah, she was really nice. And we went through all of the whole assessment, basically a history of your life, autobiography, or however you want to call it. The moment you're born, how did you feel? So they understand things. Afterwards, I think I waited for another 5 months till I had the second assessment. And normally after 2 assessments, they do tend to start you off on testosterone. I was really happy, of course, when I had my first shot. My partner was with me and literally took a picture of me getting the shot. Then I waited for maybe another 8 or 9 months until I got the referral for first surgical assessment for top surgery. So I was referred shortly after my assessment. And I had a choice of surgeons. My first choice would have been here in London, of course, but it was all depending on the waiting list. So the London waiting list was higher than the Brighton one. So I ended up having my surgery in Brighton, but I'm very happy with the results. So I had my top surgery. It was 2 years ago, in October, 2 years ago. Yeah. I know a lot of trans people tend to, especially trans males, tend to get a bit in an overthinking place before they have their top surgery, because they think, what if? I've been through that as well. It's normal to be like that. Top surgery is quite minor. If you think about it, back in the day, it wasn't that simple, but because there's so many doctors doing it now and because of various reasons.
Is it a pretty streamlined process for most trans people in the UK? In the United States, it is so different from person to person. Some people's insurance won't cover it. Some surgeons will say you need to be on hormones for X amount of time. You need to be living as the gender you want from X amount of time.
When it comes to the process itself is the same for everybody. Obviously, taking out of the conversation the insurance part, because there is no insurance, because like I said, everything is covered by the National Health Service, so people don't pay anything from their own pockets. Yeah, the process is exact for every single person, but then everyone's journey is different. But the surgeons, once the referral is made, they cannot refuse the patient. They wouldn't put anyone to go through surgery or refer them to surgery if they think that there might be health issues involved.
The difference between countries, even first world countries, and the process, the transitioning process, is completely different.
And it's really not fair. It's not fair.
No, it's not, because it affects the mental health and the transitioning process and what people have access to, even gender affirming therapy.
Yeah, if it's straightforward, basically, that's it. The same for everyone.
When you started transitioning, what was that like?
It was exciting. I've never had a moment of unhappiness, so to speak, because it was exciting. Things were actually happening. It's just so liberating having getting to have top surgery finally, after being really, really dysphoric about my chest for so many years. Never had an unhappy moment from the moment since I started my transition with that first testosterone injection. I was just a happy bunny, basically. I had my ups and downs because of obviously my body was getting used to the hormones emotionally, but I never felt depressed, or I've never felt sad. And I've been told, yeah, that's normal because it's a hormonal imbalance until it levels out. Yeah, I had a lot of support around me, so it didn't affect me that much. I was lucky.
Are you still in contact with your family in Transylvania? I'm just curious how they feel about the transition.
Yes, I'm still in contact. I never had any issues with my family. My family was always very, very supportive. And even though they didn't quite understand everything at the beginning when I was still in Romania, but they are a lot more understanding now. Obviously, because of the resources, it's easier now to send a link to someone with a medical professional explaining things than it was back in the day. You couldn't pull out this information from like I said, from the newspaper or from a magazine, you know. So it's easier for them as well when just presented with something that they just have to click on. And there it is, the miracle of technology. It's all in front of you. You just need to listen.
I think that comes up a lot of times on the videos too on TikTok. It's like, there's this free thing called internet.
True.
I mean, when I was a kid, yeah, there wasn't, I'm only 3 years younger than you. There wasn't the internet. My parents had that huge encyclopedia with like 20 books, and that was where you had to go, or the library. You couldn't just go on a computer and look in, a fourth of a second and get all this information.
Exactly. So much easier, isn't it? Some people just find it easier to just, I'm just going to pop the question and miraculously someone's going to answer to it.
You use a lot of social media to raise awareness about yourself as a trans person and answer questions. When did you decide to be more out in public, answering questions, raising awareness?
To be honest, with Instagram, my partner, she said, you should really, this was just before top surgery, I think a few months before top surgery. She said, you should really open another Instagram account just like for your journey, and because you're going to have top surgery. I said, okay, I'll do that. No, I think I opened it before I started the transition, but I wasn't really on it, posting that much, and I wasn't really into it. And then before top surgery, she was telling me, you need to post more now because you're getting the top surgery. So to see if other people have questions of this and that. So after I had my top surgery, I was just sitting in bed, really drowsy at the hospital. And I just went on a following frenzy on Instagram. That's how I call it. I was just bored and I was just scrolling and following people left and right until I got a following ban. And from then, after I started like posting pictures with comparison pictures and how my surgery went and stuff like that, and on my story, I had that traffic because people were following me back. I think in a few months, I managed to get to 1,000 followers, but still I wasn't posting. I wasn't engaging that much. Then after the top surgery, I just started to be more consistent, I guess, just doing me. Nothing like out of the ordinary, like to be a people's pleaser or anything, because I said I'm never going to do that. I'm just going to be myself. Then TikTok came along. I actually downloaded TikTok 2 years ago, and I got so upset because I was scrolling. I didn't post anything. I was scrolling, and I missed the bus stop. And I was like, I'm fed up with this app. So I completely deleted my app. I deleted it because I was pissed. I was upset that I missed my bus stop. I deleted it. And I said,
TikTok rabbit hole is real.
Yeah, it is. And I said, I'm never gonna get on it. And then last year in lockdown in October, I was like, oh my God, I'm so bored. Like, what should I do? So I don't have that much patience, when it comes to like editing and stuff like that. And I just started posting like I said, out of pure boredom. And then I actually saw that, people are actually watching my videos, and that made me feel good. That made me feel more confidence, because I didn't have that much confidence before TikTok, which is surprising me. But yeah, it did help me tremendously with my confidence, really, really a boost in confidence. And I was so happy that people were engaging, and they were started following my Instagram, and they were asking me questions. Or you get the parents who ask about their kids. My child came out as trans. What can I do? How can I support them best? So it's just beautiful to see that people are actually interested in your journey, and they're interested in what you've been through in order to help others as well. And it got to a point where, that this is, now I know why something or someone pushed me to pursue this. I'm of the belief that everything happens for a reason. And it's just beautiful now to see after a year that come on and message me and tell me, oh, you're the reason why I had the courage to come out, or to my family, or to my friends, or to start my journey. And it's just great, because the more awareness this gets, the more people will tend to be more kind and more accepting and more understanding. So yeah, that's the story of my social media
But as
journey.
you are inspiring, you do help other people. I mean, I'm an agender. I only started looking at top surgery earlier this year, and I have it in just over 2 weeks. Even though I'm not female to male trans, seeing other people in their journey and just out there living their life, it helps with my confidence.
Yeah, I was the same. I was inspired by other people. So I think it's like a chain, isn't it? I think we just pass it on, our knowledge and our experience, and we pass it on to other people, and then they do the same thing. So it's like a chain. It's just beautiful to see.
So I do have to ask, what is the weirdest comment or question?
You have the group of people who are really, really curious about what's between your legs. And I personally find that really weird. Like, I wouldn't want to know of a random stranger what they have between their legs. Why is it my issue? You know what I mean? It's not my problem what they have between their legs, especially that I don't know that person. And then you have the other group that say, oh yeah, but you're biologically still a female. Some people just don't get it, that we're not stupid. We know basic biology. We know that you can't change DNA, but that doesn't affect us. It doesn't really matter to us. Questions can be formulated in a really weird way. You know, for instance, I had one. I don't know if you've seen the one with the banana.
Yes, I remember that.
That made me laugh. Yeah. So the formulation of them can be really, really weird, and varies from person to person and from ethnicity to ethnicity, depending on how they think in their head to formulate the question. But it can be quite funny.
Some of the questions in the comments I've seen of, would you ask somebody that? I don't really care what your gender identity is. You don't walk up to somebody and say, like a cis man, and say, hey, how big is your...
Yeah, exactly. You don't do that. But it's just, I don't know. I feel like sometimes people feel entitled to know just because you're different. It's the really bad type of entitlement. It's not good.
And I think some people don't understand that the way that you ask questions, the tone and how you do that also makes a difference.
Yeah, some people are just not mindful of other people's lives. And like I said, they just feel entitled to know and to ask questions, and they think that it's okay, but it's not. People ask if I can still have kids, which is, again, it's quite simple to Google to see that most of trans men, if they do want kids, they tend to freeze their eggs before transition. And yes, of course, I can still have biological kids, because that's how they put it. Oh, but you won't be able to have biological kids. Yes, I can. But what they mean, saying that, oh yeah, but you can't get your partner pregnant. And yes, that might be true. But does it really matter in this day and age if you can physically do that when there's specialists and there's other resources?
I think it's interesting that they're asking that, because if cis people can't have kids, they just go adopt.
Exactly.
Or they can have kids but choose to adopt, and that's perfectly okay.
Yeah, I know. I don't how some people think. It's not just trans men or trans women that are in this situation. You know what I mean? It's other people as well, non-trans people who can't have kids. We can't be the same. So
how was your transition as far as the people around you or people that you've encountered?
I personally never had any issues. So like I said, everyone was really supportive. Even in my previous work place, even in my workplace now, I never had any issues. And I can say I'm quite fortunate, because I know some people are struggling with either work colleagues or friends, or they lose friends. I never had any of that. And I'm really, really thankful for that.
Has safety ever been a concern?
No, I was doing a video for work for the Trans Remembrance Day yesterday. Yeah, it's really sad to see that 45 people lost their lives already this year through violence. And it's what saddens me most is that most of those people were trans women. And I think trans men, once they start their transition and they start to like pass, I hate that term, but in this context, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Once
no,
they
I know
start,
what you mean.
once they pass, there is no safety concerns unless they go out there to a club and start screaming it from the rooftop. You know what I mean? Screaming it from the top of their lungs that, oh, hey, I'm trans, and you might get safety concerns because of that. But once they start to pass, there's absolutely no safety concerns. As with trans women, it saddened me so much. Yes, they're going through all those people's names and seeing that 90% of those people who killed this year, mostly trans women. Really, really sad, really sad. I do believe it's got to do a lot with the fact that they just started their transition or they didn't start their transition, and people tend to be really, really mean. So, and all of them in the US, unfortunately.
It is really sad. The struggle that people have just regarding what bathroom they want to
Yeah.
use. People just want to go use the bathroom. They're not in there to prey on other people. Everybody has to do the same business. Where else are you going to go? That's been something I've been thinking a lot about, because once I have top surgery and I do dress more in men's clothes than women's clothes, I almost have to start thinking about the conversation or what my reaction is going to be if somebody comes up and says, why are you using that bathroom? Instead, you should
Yeah.
be using the men's bathroom.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this has just got to do with mostly with men, and I'm talking about most cis men, don't really have a problem with a trans guy going into the bathroom. I think it's the other way around, unfortunately. I'm not saying this, I'm not a misogynist or anything, but I do think this issue is more on the women's bathroom side of it. And if trans women access the women's bathroom, I think that can cause a bit of a stir from the women's perspective, which is not founded, of course. There's no logical claim to it. Like, trans woman is a woman, feels she needs to go in the correct bathroom, which is the ladies' bathroom. They're raising our safety concerns, but what if? Has it actually ever happened? Because I'm not aware of it. You know what I mean? For a trans woman to assault a cis woman. I've never heard of this.
When you had your top surgery and you could go shirtless, how did that feel, like, say, going to the beach or outside? Because some people have negative comments about people that have, especially trans people, that have scars.
Yeah, it does happen. And this year, first time I've been to a public park. It was really, really hot day. It was like, I don't know, around 30 degrees. It was really hot. So that was my first time when I was topless, and everybody was topless in the park, just enjoying the sun. So I was a bit reluctant at the beginning. I was telling my partner, I was like, oh, should I just take the shirt off? Because I was like literally sweating, everybody was shirtless around me. There I was with the shirt on. And then she said, just take it off. So I took it off. Nothing happened. There was no stairs, no nothing. And I felt really, really comfortable. And it felt so liberating. I was like, oh, wow, I can finally take my shirt off, and not wear a sports bra, because I always used to wear a sports bra, Then, when I used to do that, I was getting the stares because I wasn't really looking like a woman. You know what I mean? And then properly it happened when we went to Bournemouth, to the seaside, and again there was no stairs. I had a few attempts at surfing and I rented a surfboard from the surf shop, and there was a guy there. I think the guy was gay. He just with some people you just know. I'm not trying to be shitty for saying that, but you know what I mean. And he just said, oh, you're trans, that's so cool, and oh my god, your body. And I was like, and I started, I know I blushed, I was like, oh, thank you for the compliment. And that was really validating, and it made me feel really good, of course. Yeah, but I didn't have the bad stares. I know some people do, and it's really bad of people to, because people don't understand you can have these scars even for other reasons as well, not just because you're trans. So it's a bit so judgmental. Not a bit, it's a lot of judgment there from people to just assume that because you have those scars, oh yeah, you're trans. But unfortunately, some people do give you the stares. I was just lucky enough for me not to happen this year. You never know. But you know me, I don't care. I wouldn't care.
So first of all, I have to say surfing in England, when I lived there, I never saw somebody that surfed. When did this happen? Wait, what?
Well, the best waves are in Cornwall. I've never been though, but I do want to go. There was a bit of waves in Bournemouth, and that's when I decided. I said, "Oh yeah, I always wanted to try that," but because of my boobs, I never had the courage to put myself on a surfing board. So that was my opportunity to do so.
So we've talked a little bit online how people are so judgmental about scars.
It all comes down to that. So if they don't understand a thing from the root, then they won't understand why the scars are there, or they will be repulsed by anything. Could be you saying you're trans. It could be an instant repulsion to them. It's just one of those things. And this type of people, unfortunately, they can never turn around. All I'm doing is I'm praying that that type of people don't have kids who will grow up to realize that they're trans, because they're going to be the ones who will be suffering because of their parents.
There's a lot of teens that are homeless in the United States that are part of the LGBTQ community. And it's so sad.
It is.
Because for me as a parent, parenting is a privilege, not a right.
Yeah.
Having a kid is a responsibility. You
Yeah.
are obligated to that child to provide whatever that child needs, medical care, mental health care, support. One thing that I've seen and heard for people that are trans and in a relationship is sometimes people question the partner's sexuality because they're with someone that's trans. Is that something that you've still seen in the UK? Maybe not necessarily with your partner, but other people?
My partner is bi anyway, so that wouldn't have affected, me transitioning, wouldn't have really affected our relationship. I don't know anyone personally, but a lot online, especially when women say that, "Oh, I'm questioning my sexuality now because I feel attracted to you. So does that mean I'm gay?" And I always answer, "No, trans man or man. So no, you're not gay. You are still straight." I had this conversation with one of my colleagues, and it's such a delicate subject because in the end, we have to admit that we're not cis men, and we will never be cis men. And people can have private parts preferences. For example, I've been told that might come off as transphobic, but for me personally, it makes sense. I had a friend who was talking to a trans woman. The trans woman, beautiful, beautiful trans woman, but the trans woman was pre-bottom surgery. And my friend said they don't feel repulsed of their whole body except their private parts because they just are not attracted to male genitals, which I completely understood. And they asked me, "Do you think that is transphobic?" I said, from my perspective, you can have preferences when it comes to genitals. You can't ask a person to be attracted to a genital if they're not attracted to it. Does that make sense to you?
I have always been a bit confused about the conversations that happen around transphobia and dating. People will say, "Well, that's not my preference." And people are like, "Oh, you're transphobic, you're transphobic." And I think to myself, well, if we were straight and cis and somebody says, "I only like brown-haired females," or "I like really tall men," that doesn't mean you hate shorter men.
No, it's
you
a
just have a
preference.
preference.
Exactly my point.
And you're not saying, "Ugh, you're a trans woman, I would never be attracted to a trans woman." You're saying, "Well, I'm not attracted to this type of genitalia."
Yes, I completely agree. If you're identifying as straight, like my friend, yeah, he identifies as straight cis man. How can you ask a straight cis man to be involved in intimate with someone who still has male genitalia if he identifies as straight? If he would have identified as pan, it wouldn't be any problem for him, would it? You know what I mean? So it's just like a thin line. I'm glad I spoke to you because I know a lot of people who have completely different opinions and say that this is transphobic, but that I strongly believe that this is not transphobic at all. It's just a preference, but people tend to take it out of context because it's a more taboo preference because we're talking about genitalia and because we're talking about trans people.
Yeah, and especially if that person is saying, "I fully believe that you are a woman, but I struggle being attracted to this genitalia." It's very
Yeah.
different. And then you have the delicate topic that comes up about fetishes around trans people as well.
I mean, I personally, I don't consider myself fetishized at all. I don't know about other people, but I just don't. I just find that a bit extra for people to go around and say, oh, this is fetishizing, this is fetishizing. It's not. They just say, oh, yeah, I would like to date a trans man. It's just actually putting the trans in front of man, because we are trans men. We're not cis men. So we identified, we put it out there in the video that, oh, hi, I'm trans. I was born a female and stuff. And why is it wrong for a person to say that I would like to date a trans man when we already put it out there? Do you know what I mean? If we use that term for ourselves, why can't they use it?
And it's almost that same thing. Whereas if you're attracted to trans men, you're attracted to trans men.
I saw a lot of trans creators that a lot of them actually did videos to say, oh, I'm sorry, I might be losing a lot of followers, but we are trans men and we will never be cis men. And that's something that needs to be really embedded into our culture, because that's the truth, we will never be cis men. So it will be like losing our identity as well if we wouldn't, like, I like to say it, I like to, whenever I'm in a group and stuff and the conversation gets to a point where it's being talked about LGBTQIA, I always say, oh yeah, by the way, I'm trans. Obviously not just out of nowhere, but I don't really like to be, even though probably the people that I walk past around the street or on the train or whatever going to work, they just think, oh yeah, I'm a cis man. I don't like to be seen like that, because I think I'm more than that. I think I'm more of a cis man. I'm not saying that, oh, we are a better race or whatever, I'm not saying that at all, but I think we have our own identities. We're not cis, and that's that. We'll never be cis.
So what advice would you have for somebody that is out and they want to start doing more on, like, say, Instagram and TikTok?
I was thinking when I started TikTok, oh, should I do something like specific? Or I said, no, you know what? I'm just going to be myself. And that works every time. Just be yourself and do whatever you can do. And even if it's story time all the time and you have a lot of stories to say, there's always going to be people who love to listen. There's always followers for everybody.
Is there any other comment or thing that you would want to talk about, whether it's for other trans people that are starting their journey or parents of trans kids?
I would say for trans people who are just starting their journey, I would say patience is your friend. Patience needs to be your friend. Things don't happen immediately. Things will happen at the right time, at the right pace, and to stay hopeful. And for parents, it's just to try. If they don't understand us, try to understand us and to support us. That's every trans person's dream, is for their parents to be supportive. That's all they want, to see that their parents are there for them no matter what.
Thank you for tuning in to episode 3 of the Love Action Art podcast. You can follow Taylor on Instagram and TikTok by searching Taylor Winters FTM. To stay up to date on new episodes, follow Love Action Art podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can listen to available episodes on all major podcast platforms. You can support the podcast by liking and sharing our social media posts and episodes with people you know. You can also subscribe to the podcast Patreon account for early access to episodes and additional ways to interact with the podcast. If you are interested in being a guest or know someone who should be, email loveactionart@gmail.com. I'm your host, Pay Carter, and thank you for listening to the Love Action Art podcast.